Hey guys, my name is Polly Latofsky, and I have been following Brandon and WalkAway. In fact, I give to him in his Patreon account every month, so I've been a big fan, been watching all your videos. Frankly, never even occurred to me to do my own. I don't know why. I thought my story wasn't, I don't know, dramatic enough or whatever, but he put out a plea today to post your videos, and I promised that I would. So I guess here's my WalkAway a long time ago. Now I'm a walk with. Okay, so I was a Democrat, grew up in the liberal cesspool of America, Minneapolis, in the liberal family, love them, but I am the black sheep. And then I just thought that, you know, Democrats were nice people and Republicans were mean. I guess that's kind of what I've been hearing all across your videos too, and that's very much my story. So as I went through my life, I lived in big cities. Now, please forgive me, but I lived in Boston, and I remember going out to rally for Ted Kennedy. Oh my God, please forgive me. But then Michael Dukakis, oh, it was just horrible. So you would think by my bio that I would be a liberal. Growing up in Minneapolis, living in cities, I am in a creative field, which generally is liberal. I'm in the publishing world. I am a single woman. I've never been married. I don't have kids. So those are all sort of traits for being a liberal. So no one would ever guess. I'm not necessarily religious. Nothing like that. So half Jewish, half Lutheran. So I got liberal written all over me. But no, I mean, honestly, if I would have taken a test, probably when I was 6, I probably would have said, you know, you're a Republican, you're a conservative. Because I've had these same values, but they were misplaced. So that's what I am. So I had this dream my whole life to go walk around the world. When I was 12, growing up in Minneapolis, I read a story of a guy that went and walked around the world, and I'm like, oh, I want to go do that. That's how I wanted to go explore the world. But when I was 12, it was 1974, and 12-year-old girls don't grow up and go walk around the world. So it was kind of this hidden dream of mine, and I tucked it inside my head and went on with my life. But that had triggered something, and I always wanted to go walk around the world. So as I moved around from the cities to the cities and all these creative jobs that are filled with liberals, I always had questions, certainly, about their liberal policies, but I didn't know enough. I hadn't been, woke yet. But anyway, in the meantime, at the age of 37, I just sold all my belongings and got my world together to, in fact, go live this dream to go walk around the world. So that is my claim to fame. I'm the first woman to go walk around the world. So I was walking, and I started in Vail, Colorado, and I headed west, and I went through the western U.S., of course, from LA, then I went down through New Zealand, up through Australia, and into Southeast Asia, Singapore, and in through Malaysia, and by now I've been on the road for 2+ years when I walked into Malaysia. And Malaysia was a game changer in my life, in my political world, how I saw the world, and everything else. I was in Malaysia during September 11th, 2001. And I remember the day, I remember exactly, of course, where I was. I actually was staying at some people were putting me up at a hotel, and this is before cell phones and all this. This is 2001. So we had internet, but it wasn't as big a deal as it is now. But I remember I went on to CNN. They had a little internet cafe in the atrium of the hotel. So I got onto CNN.com that night. It was 9/11 in Malaysia, but it was early 9/11 in America. And I just happened to notice the time in the upper left-hand corner, CNN.com. That's when CNN was actually reputable. So I remember so clearly looking at all the stories and going, okay, well, nothing of a life-changing nature has happened in the world, so I can, I always wanted to kind of keep up with what was going on in the world because I'm heading into a very Muslim world. And I looked in the upper left-hand corner of CNN, and it said 8:45 a.m., September 11th, and that was New York time. Well, nothing of a world-changing event has taken place, so I'll just go to bed. So I go to bed, I'm sleeping when all the 9/11 stuff happens. And because of the time difference, it was exactly 12 hours difference. I wake up the next morning, and all these people that were coming to walk with me, without going into all the detail, the Lions clubs and Rotary clubs would sort of pass me village to village and come walk with me and stuff like that. So they were all meeting me at this hotel, and they were saying, well, do you still want to walk today? Do you know what's going on? And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. And they tried to explain to me in their language that, about the hijackers and the crash into the buildings fall down. And I couldn't understand them. So I called my dad in LA right there on the spot. I said, what is going on out there? By now it's 9/11 LA time. I said, what is going on? So he tells me what's going on. And that set my walk and my life off into a different trajectory altogether that morning. So they said, do you still want to walk, or do you want to take the day off? What do you want to do? And I said, well, let's continue to walk, but if you guys could help me find a place to stay tonight that has CNN and internet access. Remember, it's 2001, early days of online access. They said, okay, so we continue to walk. And they do. They find me a place to stay. Now, as I look back, and I look back at all this, when you look back and you can see all the dot to dots and stuff like that, and it starts to make sense, or you start to marvel at certain things. I was gone for a total of 5 years, walking around the world for 5 years. So how many days is that? It's like 1,800 plus days, right? The only night ever that I stayed with a Muslim family was the night of 9/11. They found a family that was a Muslim family, but it was Muslim by default, if you will, okay? Because if you marry a Muslim, you have to become Muslim, and if you give birth to someone, if you were Chinese and they were Muslim, now you're both Muslim and you give birth to babies that are Muslim. So this was like all by default. The mother was actually Chinese and the man was actually Tamil Indian. But they were Muslim by default. So they, they had 3 grown kids, and they had shipped them off to Australia to get their education. And they said, these 2 people, they greeted me into their home, and they said, I understand you want internet access and CNN and just get caught up. And I said, yeah, that'd be great. They said, I'm so sorry, but we have plans for tonight, but we're going to cut it short, but we're going to just run out. And in the meantime, we're just going to plunk you here in front of CNN, and we'll be right back. Well, their mother was next to me, and she was a Muslim woman with the whole headdress, everything. So her and I couldn't talk to each other. We're both sitting side by side, staring at CNN, trying to unravel what had happened that day. And it's still 9/11, but it's 9/11 late night Malaysia time, and in the US now is September 12th. So they had been living with this for 24 hours. Does that make sense? So they came back, and it was really the start of a game changer in my life. I sat and chatted with them. Again, they're Muslim by default, right? I remember so clearly sitting at their dinner table. And it now seems like a really weird conversation, but I want you to take yourself back to 2001. And we didn't know what we know now about Islam and about how they hate America and all this stuff. So I sat at this dinner table with them, and I said, well, I don't understand how you're Muslim by default. Why can't you just not be Muslim? Because they were very embarrassed by their religion. They didn't want to be Muslim. I was like, well, I don't get it, right? My all American, free to be whoever the heck you want to be kind of, mindset. I'm like, well, why can't you just not be Muslim? And they were saying, you can't do that. She was, born into it because her father was Muslim and married their mother, and, all the the whole story. And then, so she's Muslim and wanted to marry him, who's a Tamil Indian, so now he's Muslim. And they're explaining that, no, you can't just not be Muslim. Once Muslim, you're always Muslim. And they were worried about their kids. And their kids are grown and they're living in Australia. Why are you worried about them? They're in Australia. It's not they look Muslim or look Middle Eastern. And remember, it was the first day. We didn't even know what was really going on. They said, well, we're worried about them because if they were to be asked, they would have to tell the truth about that they're really Muslim. So I didn't get any of this, and we just had this real blunt conversation. And he was saying that Muslims don't drink, and, you know, but we're bad Muslims, and I'm going to drink a beer, and this kind of thing. So it was a real game changer because it gave me really genuine insight as to what it means when we say we live in a free country. What does free mean? What is freedom of religion? In America, freedom of religion, I now know because of that whole episode, freedom of religion means you don't have to be the religion of your parents. You can be born Lutheran, turn Jewish, and then get divorced and make up your own religion and be whoever you want to be, and your friends will throw you a party for finding yourself. And that is really almost nowhere else. I mean, there are other free countries in the world, but there's nothing like American freedom. Another big game changer in that whole Malaysia, now, just in case anyone asked you, it takes 2 months to walk up through the south end to the north end of Malaysia. So I was there for 2 months, and it happened to be through mid-August to mid-October 2001. So right in a very big game-changing kind of timeline in certainly American history and world history. So the Lions clubs and the Rotary clubs were helping me. They were sort of, you know, passing me village to village and walking with me and etc., taking really good care of me. And I was doing it for breast cancer, so there's breast cancer fundraising and advocacy work and stuff like that. Lots of interviews and press and things like this. And the Lions clubs were primarily, okay, well, let me back up. There's 3 major races, if you will, in Malaysia. There's the Muslims, the Malays, the Malaysians, which are Muslims, and then the Chinese, which are Buddhist, and then the Indians, Tamil Indians, okay? And they're Hindu. So there's the 3 major races / religions there. And I mean, seriously, I was like Forrest Gump out there. There were hundreds of people walking with me every day. And they were almost exclusively the Chinese and the Indians. And what I discovered is that if you are Muslim, then you go down to the equivalent of the DMV and you sign something off that said, yes, you are a practicing Muslim, doesn't care if you're Chinese or whatever, but if you are a practicing Muslim, then you are now Malaysian, and therefore you get all these different benefits in life, meaning you get you get the social programs. So you would get your children get free education, higher education. You can own land, and you can get, say, unemployment, things like that, right? All you gotta do is go down to the DMV, and I'm making that up because I don't know what it is, but it's the equivalent of the DMV, and you sign off, and then you get all these things. Okay, but if you don't sign off, then you are not Malaysian, even though you are Chinese of Chinese descent for years, okay? Years, decades, you're still Chinese, you're not Malaysian. Very different in America, right? You come into America, you're an American. So that was one weird thing. Okay, what I also saw though is these Chinese and Indians that were walking with me every day, all day, they were hard working because they didn't have any social backup. They didn't have the safety nets that the Malays do, the Muslims, okay? So I'm watching this, and I'm watching every town we're going through. By the way, it's like, I think it's like 60 to 70% Malaysian race that is there, and then the other 30-40% is made up of the other races. And it's really that 30 to 40% of the Chinese and the Indians that are working. They're the ones working. And that's what I saw. I mean, I saw it with my own two eyeballs. They're the ones working. So essentially what I am watching day by day, footstep by footstep, talk about ground level stuff, is I am seeing two societies living side by side. One is a socialist country and one is free market. And they were side by side. Who was working? Who was getting educated? It was the Chinese and the Indians that were going to school, and they would raise their kids and ship them off to, say, Australia, the US, the UK, to get educated. That was a game changer to see that. Two societies living side by side, that is Malaysia. And what I haven't stayed up on, I don't know. I haven't stayed up on the fact that if everyone is going to raise their kids and ship them out, well, who is in fact going to be doing the work, right? If the Malays, in fact, are not going to be doing the work. Do you see what I mean? So that was a big old game changer. And that 9/11 happened during this time, of course, and there was that funky month between when 9/11 happened and then when the world, the Allies actually went to war. And they went to war the day before I actually crossed from Malaysia into the Thai border. And Thailand's a different story. So as I continued my walk, I was not quite halfway around at that point. So as I continued my next 2.5 years, I am watching as the world is changing, and I really started to become politically woke. I started reading papers, and I mean, podcasts didn't exist yet. It was even difficult to get a newspaper, but I would try to get them. And I just started asking questions to myself. And again, you know, there wasn't smartphones or anything yet. But I just started asking questions and looking and asking for answers and observing. It was just a lot of observing too. You're observing different cultures as you're going around, you know. It's like Thailand is one kind of culture. It's very free market trade. We have a good relationship with them. Then over into India, different entirely. Then up through Turkey and Europe. And I'm just seeing all these changes. And I really became a Republican. After, let me see, I arrived 3.5 years after I'd started, I arrived back into the United States on the East Coast. And I had a whole new vision and idea and understanding of what America is, what it means to the world, what it means to the history of the world, why people were fighting for freedom, what freedom really means. I got it. I got it. And I started to see, of course, as I continued my walk, like all these people that risked lives to get to America. And why? It's because of these systems, right? So they get to America and they have their freedom and they build and they build. And so then I arrive back into the US and I see it with fresh new eyes. And I see it through the eyes of the immigrants that came in. And I just started thinking, you know, it's certainly worth fighting for. So once I got back into America, and there was still another 1.5 years to walk from New York to Colorado, but I started listening to Glenn Beck, Sean Hannity. I started listening to Rush Limbaugh, and they made sense to me. And I was like, that's it. I get it. That's where I have been, frankly, since I was a kid. But I couldn't put a sort of a face to it. And I was like, wow, I'm really a Republican. So I finished my walk, and I think my mom, God love her, you know, she's fabulous and all, but she's liberal. She's not left-wing. She's liberal. She's you can have a chat with her, but you know, when people when people ask her, wasn't it scary to have your daughter out walking in the world by herself? She says, well, the scariest thing is she came back a Republican. But I really, you know, again, saw the world through different eyes. And I remember when I was coming back into the U.S. and Mom had realized I was getting so much support all around the world. And she said, you know, I know you're going to be really disappointed when you get back to the U.S. and you're not going to get nearly the support that you have all over the world. And I got to tell you, I was kind of nervous about that. Boy, and we could not have been more wrong. I found Americans to be among the friendliest and most hospitable and most generous people of anywhere in the world. Anywhere in the world. The friendliest, the most generous, all the time. People putting me up, picking up my check at the diner, and just, stopping and giving me gifts. People giving me, like, here's some bread, here's a rock from the quarry, and just running after me, giving me gifts. And I saw that I was discovering America with such completely different eyes and ready to fight. So then cut to 2016, of course. And I was thrilled. I was on board with Donald Trump right away, thinking, he's a businessman. If you are not looking with close eyes, you think he's some kind of doofus, a big orange fella. And he ain't no doofus. I think, predict this, because, mark my words, he is going to be a class in college, in universities, that people are going to study. How is he 10 steps ahead of everybody else? If you think he's stupid, then you just keep thinking that, because, he has fooled you. So I am watching and studying what he does, flat out studying it, because he is. You can't be a successful real estate developer in New York City and internationally without being 5 steps ahead, 10 steps ahead. So one of the biggest things I learned on my walk, 5 years, is that there is always another side to the story. Every single time there is another side to the story. So as an example, one time I was walking up for 2 months. I was walking up the east coast of Australia. It's just nothing but farmland, and they're huge farms. Farmland, farmland, farmland. And I don't remember the details, except that while I was walking through this area, there was a big strike going on, 2 different sides of the strike. And I would stay with a family on one night, and they would tell me all about their side. And I was like, yeah, you're right. I'm with you. How could they? And I'm all ranting and raving. I'm on your side. Next day, I'm staying with another family. They're on the opposite side of that strike, and they're telling me their side. I'm like, yeah, you're right. And I'm on your side. And then every night, I would hear a different side to the story. And that was a game changer too. There's always a different side to the story. So now I know how to read the media, as all of you do too. Otherwise you wouldn't be on this great WalkAway campaign. So now when I hear something, I don't believe it. Like, automatically don't believe it. Even if it's on our side. I dig into it. What is the real story? And that's how I listen and read and watch the news at this point. But so I started out as a WalkAway, but now since 2001, I've been a WalkAway, and now I'm a walk with. I'm a passionate walk with. I will do what it takes to get Donald Trump reelected. I think he is. You think I'm crazy. You think this is an overreaction. I don't think he's just saving the United States. I think he's saving Western civilization. I really, really do. So that's my story. I'm glad I finally did it. So anyway, way to go, Brandon, and way to go, team. Just keep it up. I'm with you. Thanks, guys.